we are already getting the posts that are inside of the post table for our database from the history page. And we are already displaying that. But so far, the posts already have some information that we are not displaying yet. And we mentioned that that information is going to be used inside of the map. So we're going to use some of the new information, for example, the latitude and the longitude, to display that information in the map that so far only displays the location for the user. So what I'm going to do is get the posts the same way that we're doing currently from the history page, but from the map page. So I am going to copy the code that I have here in the onAppearing method for the map page. I'm going to close this and I'm going to go to the mappage.saml.cs file. In here, we already have the onAppearing method, and it's in here where we also want to get the information for the posts. So, right after moving the map to the user's location, I am going to get all of the posts from the post table. And I do not have this list view, so I won't need this, but what I do need is to add some using directives so I can start using the SQLite connection, which is the SQLite namespace, as well as the post class, which is inside of the travel record app.model namespace. And so now that we have read the posts from the table from this page as well, I want to display them inside of a map. And for that, I am going to create a new method, which is going to be called display in map, and is going to receive the posts. So it uses them to create new pins inside of the map. And of course, currently I do not have access to this method. All I have to do is type Ctrl- on my keyboard for Visual Studio to help me generate this method. And you can see how it creates it as private void, the name of the method that I had just called, and the type of the argument that I just sent. We're not going to need this throw new exception, but in here we do want to create a pin for each and every one of the elements that is being received through the posts argument. For each and every one of those posts, we're going to create a new pin and add it to the map. So to get each and every one of the elements inside of a list, we can use a for each loop. And the for each loop is going to get one post for each and every one of the elements inside of the posts variable. And so this loop is going to execute one time for every element inside of the list. It is going to get that element, and so we can use that element in here. The first thing that we'll need is to create a new position. The new position is going to be equal to a new position. And remember, we have already used the constructor for this position. In fact, the position that we want is the one that is inside of the xamarin.forms.maps namespace, so we can write it down. And this position is going to request first the latitude and then the longitude. And that we can get it from the post, because this post already has latitude as well as longitude. And this is the coordinates where the post or the new pin is going to be created on. So the next step is to create the pin that we're going to be drawing inside of the map. We can create it through the pin class. And the pin class is going to be inside of the xamarin.forms.maps namespace as well. So I can either add a using directive, or I can just write the entire namespace before the name of the class. And this new pin is going to have some values assigned to it right away. We can start by defining its type. And the type is going to be one of the values inside of the pin type, which is going to be either generic, place, saved pin, or search result. Right now, I am going to select saved pin. The pin also has a position, which is going to be equal to the variable that we had just created. We can also set the label, which is going to be equal to the name of the venue, which is inside of the post variable. And we could also set the address to what is inside of the post.address property. And finally, having this pin, we can access the locations map, access its pins property, and its pins property has an add method, which requires exactly a pin, which we have just created. And so we are now creating a pin for each and every one of the posts inside of the list. and we're adding it to the map. Now, before testing this, we're also going to be needing a try-catch block inside of this display in map method, because some of these posts don't have a latitude, don't have a longitude. And so when accessing these variables, we could have an exception. The position wouldn't be created. If the position is not created, it is going to be null, and the position would not be able to be assigned to the position property of the pin. So inside of the for each loop, I'm going to add a try block. And this try block is going to be wrapping all of the code inside of the loop. And finally, I'm going to be catching first a null reference exception, and I'm going to set a name for the variable. And then I'm going to catch the general exception, and I'm also going to set a name for the variable. And now we can go ahead and test this out on the simulator. In the simulator, I'll have to navigate to the map tab once the application is up and running and see what pins are being displayed. So I am going to log in into the application. I'll navigate to the map page. To display the user's location, I first have to set it. And you see how we get navigated there. And we already see a pin. And if we select the pin, we see that the name or the label is being set to the name of the venue, and the address is being set to the address of the venue. So great, we are already displaying that information, and if I zoom in, I can see it a little bit in more detail where this is located. And you can see how it is not exactly in the user's location, but it is very near. And of course, currently we're only displaying one of these elements. But let's go ahead and add a new element. We're going to navigate to this page, and I'm going to select one other element inside, maybe one that is a little bit further, like this one that is 152 meters away. I am going to write something inside of this experience, something random, and I'm going to save this. This was successful. Let's navigate back, and we are currently getting an error. And I think I know where this is coming from. And it's probably executing the onAppearing method again, because we are getting navigated back to the map page. And there are two things that we are doing in here that we are supposed to end at some point. One of them is the one that is probably causing the exception, or the error that is closing the application. On the onAppearing, we are creating a new event handler, but we are never getting rid of this event handler. But the most important thing in here is that we are starting to listen, we never stop listening, and then we're trying to start to listening again. So we have to do something about this. And one of the ways of solving this is overriding another method. We can override the onDisappearing method. And on the onDisappearing method, we want to get rid first of the event handler. So what I can do is copy the line where I'm creating the event handler and get rid of it. And it's actually going to be very similar, because instead of doing plus equal, we do minus equal. Now, of course, the locator is not in here, so what I'm going to do is get the locator again, which is always going to be the cross-geolocator.current. But the one that is most important is that I am going to, from the locator, call the stop listening async method. Because it's async, I have to await it, and because I'm awaiting, I have to make this method async. Okay, so let's try one more time. And in fact, we have already added something to the database. This was executed only after we had already successfully inserted. So we can go to the map tab and check if the new pin was added. So I am going to the map tab. I'm going to set the location inside of the simulator. I get navigated. And if I zoom in all the way to where this is located, we can see that in fact we have another pin that is a little bit further from the user's location, and that is Charleston Park, has the name and has the address. And let's try adding one more element and see if this onDisappearing method has solved the issues that we just had. So I am going to select one that is a little bit closer. Let's select one at 27 meters. Let's write something in the experience. Let's hit save. It was successfully inserted. Let's navigate back. We don't have any exceptions anymore. And if we zoom in, we can see now 3 pins inside of the map. And if we select this other pin, we can see that it also has the name and it also has the address. Great. So we have successfully added REST capabilities to our application. We are now requesting information from a REST service, in this case the Foursquare API, and receiving venues that are close by or close to the location of the user. And with that received information, in JSON by the way, and that is being casted or deserialized into C# objects, we are displaying that into a list. What's interesting is that we're also saving that information into a post and then using that information to display those elements into the map in the form of pins. In the next section, we're going to start working with images so we can display them inside of the application in the form of icons or in the form of logos.